So the way the signals work is continuity and then what's in force. So when we're looking at AMD, it's a 2-up day, which means they're trying to make a higher low, or at least trying to uptrend, because the 2-up day tells us buyers are in control. So 2-up in red tells us sellers are more aggressive, but buyers are in control, which allows us to 3-1-2 down, because a 3-1-2 magnitude is to take this out, right? And then it does that. And since it's a 2-up day, once you do that, that's exhaustion risk because you're going into a new low, right? So when the new 60 opens and changes continuity, that changes where you're going. Because if the 60 continuity is up, the day continuity is down, that's fine. And then the week and month are up. What we could say is the day and 60 did sell, and they have immediate control of today's price action. The 60 has immediate control of price action right now. So when that changes and goes green, whoever was selling before, they're not selling anymore, they're buying the second that goes green, right? So what you want to ask is, that 60 flip goes green, what can you trigger and what would that do? So if you go 2-2-30 and that stays in force, where's the magnitude of that? So take this out. And remember, if you go into the bottom of a broadening formation or the top and form an actionable signal, it's more likely to go to the other side of the range because an actionable signal tells us we can expect it to move. So that triggers the 30 in force. And if you didn't take the 30, you didn't have to. And I didn't. I actually took the 5er here. And we had that inside 5 up measured move where we said you could go another 55 cents. So inside and up here goes another 41, does the 55, and then notice it doesn't reverse. 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2 up in red. This is where we profit took. And then we had this add here we had to get out of, break even. And I actually just got out of all of it. But now we might set up the 15 or 3-2. And what that would do is keep confirming what the 60 did prior on the new 60. So once we get to the flip, the question is can Qs hammer this 15 or 3-2 and start taking this out? So I guess here, for example, so when we're talking about continuity, see how this 60 changes right on the flip, right? So the second that goes red, now the 60 is in control, sellers are more aggressive because the 60 is red. So what you want to ask is when that 60 flips, what signals do you have? And when we're talking about signals, it's like 15 to trigger the 30 to trigger the 60. How does that happen? It's like, well, you're going to set up the 15, the 30, and 60. The 60 will flip, change, and then it's going to trigger the 1er, the 5er, the 15, the 30, the 60, and whatever other time frames you might trigger. And the smaller time frames occur first. So if we're looking at AMD and we see this new flip, it goes red right there at 129.2. Goes a penny below that. It's like, all right, what's the next 2? What could that create, negate, or do? So the next 2 is a 2 down on the 5. And then if that were to work, that'd be a 2 down on the 30. And if that were to work, you're still going to be inside 60. So we know not to touch that because you'll be inside 60. Now, if we compare that to, let's say, GS, you're going to see 1030 here. The flip occurs, right? And if we go down to the 15, so 1030, the flip occurs here. So for above that, what could happen? So 2215, we actually did attempt that, just didn't work, came back. If we were going high risk, we would have a stop at the low here and would have been able to just hold into it. But they create the 30 off the 2215. The new 30 opens, right? So that goes green. What's the next 2? What could that negate, create, or do? The next 2 is a 2 up 30 if it works by going green. Goes green first, goes 2 up 30, and then the question is, what can that do? That can trigger inside 60 and up. It's like, okay. And then you look at the higher time frame and you say, well, if that triggers inside 60 up, what does that do? That confirms the 212 day trying to make the new high here. Why is that trying to make a new high? Because when that day triggered, GS was still a 2 up week, which tells us higher low, higher high, right? So when that daily signal gets reconfirmed, that tells us that high is going to happen. And it's all going to occur based on when those flips open and what signals are present when the flips open, which is why every single, let's say, every 60, we're always like, what's the SPY and the Qs doing? Because if they're all hammers, that tells us the whole market has hammer 60s. Then we go and look and say, is there 15ers into that? Is there 30s into that? Is there 5ers into that? like an inside fiver right after the flip. Those are really good. Yeah, so for example, IWM. So notice this. The flip occurs here, right? So can you buy a 2-up continuation fiver? No. Is it going into a new high as well? Yes. So that's going to be a hard buy, right? Now, 2-up, it's at new high exhaustion risk, goes inside. So you ask yourselves, what is the next 2 and what would that negate, create, or do? It's like, well, inside 5 down, that would negate the 60. It's like, all right, what would that create? That would create 15er shooter. It's like, okay, so you'll notice first 15er goes up, second 15er of the 60, when the 15 and 60 opens separate and decouple, red right here. The second that goes red, we know it's trying to trigger this, right? Because it has to go red here first before triggering that. So then you can ask yourself on lower time frames, it's like, what is triggering right here to get that in force? And if it works, that next 2 is trying to take this out, because you had the 3, lower low, higher high, lower low. Then if the 15er works here, it's like, all right, makes the new low here. I have a winning position, so what can I do with that? I can let it win. Inside, down, down, makes new low a day, so exhaustion risk, 2 down green right here, get out. Or take off half, and then 2-1-2 against, get out of the rest. And you can see then, they go back to the other side of the try after jumping around in here. So what the 60 does is it tells you where you're going to go, and then it allows you to then look and say, what's the next 2 and how can I enter that? So like when we mention a continuation 60, it's like, what are we trying to tell you? It's like, well, you can't buy the 60 continuation because that's a new high, right? Which is why we look for actionable signals back through previous range, because you're not going into a new high then, you're going into a previous lower high someone might have a stop on. Most people don't have a stop at high a day here after the market pulls back maybe 20 cents off the highs, right? Which is why we don't buy that. What you can do though is if that continuation is going to occur, you can see they go into the new high, 3, 2 down, 2 up, 5 right here. And you'll notice, where's the 30 open or the 60 open? It's right here. So a 3-2-2-5, what's that going to create, negate, or do? That's going to negate the 60 should it hit the magnitude. It's like, okay, it goes all the way up there, negates the 60. It's like, that's a winning position. Do you have to do anything now? Not unless it comes back to your stop, right? 2 down, 2 up, 5. What is that going to negate, create, or do? It's like, well, the 60 is a continuation up, so it's a trend. 2 down, 2 up, 5. That's a reversal, reconfirming the daily break again while the 60 is trending. And you can notice every time frame at this point's green. So that's a buy because you had a trap short participant, 2 down, 2 up. Notice this is not buying into a new high. You're buying into a lower high here. If you bought into high a day right there, that would be buying into a higher high. And that's the difference between momentum and not momentum, which is why if I say this is a momentum trade, I say it's like 10-cent stop, 5-cent stop, 2-cent stop, like as tight as you can, because it should just go. And you'll see they did that. And now 3, 1, 2 up. It's like, why does that now not really do much? The reason that is because now we have exhaustion risk by price right here. So what normally happens is you go into the highs, and then we always talk about those signals back through previous range. So now you've made a higher high, right? That tells us the broadening formation just completed. So if it stays up there, doesn't change continuity, doesn't reverse the 60, that's still good and it'll just keep going, right? Now, if the 60 opens and goes red, it could trigger maybe like a 15er or a 30, and that'd be something you'd want to know about. Or when it makes that exhaustion risk and goes 2 up in red, causes you to take some profit. So you can see that right there. And then what most people do is they're like, oh my gosh, I have the... because they try and do this across everything. It's like, well, the month is inside, the week's inside, the day is inside, the 60's inside. I'm going to use the 5 minute to trigger the 15, to trigger the 30, to trigger the 60, to trigger the day, to trigger the week, to trigger the month. And then they're like, why didn't that work? It's like, well, the month's inside, the week's inside, the day's inside, and it's Wednesday. It's doing nothing. And that's where people mess up a lot. But if you stick to what's at 2 on the week or a month, you have a trend all week and all month. So you're going to have better trades. One other thing I could add then is those, when the 60 flip changes and goes a specific color, that's more important when continuity is obviously in one direction. When you have a ton of dojis on the higher time frames, that flip, although it changes what we know, that flip's not going to be as powerful because you don't have actual aggressive participants. So like, let's say we go to AFRM. So notice it goes 2 on the week here. It went green here first. Do we have to get in this? No. When it goes 2-2 month, you have all month, right? And they close at the highs. If we go on the week, you can see they go up, they go up, inside. The new week opens, goes green right here, and it's in force. Any signal in here, when the 60 flip reconfirms the week by going green with the week, is trying to do that. So if we go to the 60, you'll see the week opened here, right? Notice everyone gets short. They go 2-2 on the 60, back into that. It's a mother bar problem. Obviously on the gap, you get volatility, so could have stopped you. 3-2 expansion, right? So stay above that 3, that thing's going to rip. 2-2-1 add, right? 2-2-2-2. New 60, 2 up, red, some profit taking. And if you're long from here, you don't have to do anything because it doesn't come back. Then you'll notice they go inside. What does that mean? New try, slightly higher highs, and then you'll see the mother bar if we just mark that out. You get the mother bar, slight lower low, inside 60, triggers it up. New 60 opens, goes green right away. That's still a buy. Although it pulled back, goes up, slightly weak. So can't make the new high. 2 up, red, you take some profit. And the reason you do that is because your try looks like this right now. Then 2 down in green. Where's that trying to go? Here. And if they're strong, here. So you can buy that to try and take this out. And if it keeps going, it'll keep going. 3-2. You can buy that again as well. 2. Notice the shooter, right? Flip. 2 down, green. Right there, that's a buy. And that's why it's important to know about the flip, because 2 down in green, although that's a shooter, if that's not in force, that's not in force. Goes outside. 2, 1, and then we got the new week. So you'll see 1-3, and that's now 2 up week again. So you can continue to try and reconfirm that. And it looks like I didn't do too much this week. You can see though, 3 mother bar, slightly lower low. 2-2 doesn't work, inside down, rev strat back up. And then that also doesn't work. I believe it looks like, yeah, so that was trading a 2 down day. That's a problem. But 2-2 day, 2-2-2 shooter, flip, red, get out.